Greetings, distinguished gentlemen. I am sure that you, as well as I, do not approve of adultery. Now, let's hear a story about it, about adultery and what it leads to. This story could make a great movie. If you know Quentin Tarantino, let him hear it. So, let's get started. With curiosity, I asked myself the question, what could it be? Without noticing it, I absent-mindedly scratched the place on my arm. Immersed in work, but when I took a look at this place, I noticed an inflamed red rash, about an inch in diameter. Small scars and tiny dots appeared on it. In the center, puzzled, I decided to leave the table and head to the next office of my colleague. "Hi Max," I called, showing him my hand. After a short inspection, he replied, "Jim, it looks like an insect bite, although it doesn't look like a mosquito bite. Perhaps the irritation was caused by a spider or other insect. To prevent possible infection, it is best to apply a small amount of cortisone ointment and an antibiotic. As soon as I get home in the evening, I will carefully inspect the bedroom for the presence of spiders. I was most likely bitten while I was sleeping last night." I thanked Max gratefully and returned to my office. At lunchtime, I bought tubes of cortisone and an antibiotic and applied them to the affected area. In the evening, when I came home, I noticed that the redness had significantly decreased and the itching had passed. Although I wasn't too worried, in the evening, I decided to explore our bedroom in search of the culprit of the bite that bothered me. When I got home, I was met by my wife, Jill, who usually returned before me and was already preparing dinner by my arrival. When I entered, the kitchen was filled with the aroma of roast beef from a pot. Jill turned away from the stove and greeted me with a hesitant smile. "Dinner will be ready in half an hour," she informed me, bending down for a short kiss. After a light kiss, she returned to her culinary duties. "That's all I get," I muttered, feeling a pang of disappointment. Lately, she has been distant and reserved, showing noticeable indifference, even disrespect, for our relationship. "I barely found the strength to kiss you and cook dinner. Oh, by the way, you forgot to take out the trash before you left for work, and now we have a full bag under the sink." "I'll deal with it later." My response was an attempt to calm her down, hoping to diffuse the brewing tension. When her face turned red, I braced myself for what was about to happen. "Why can't it be done now?" "You're always putting things off for later," she replied with obvious disappointment. Recently, our relationship has become predictable, and I began to get tired of it. It seemed that she was always ready to argue and complain about me on any occasion. Considering that she didn't ask how my day went, I preferred to keep silent about the bite on my hand. I couldn't help but wonder if her behavior was a consequence of her struggling with depression. I read somewhere that if a wife begins to find flaws in her husband and is easily offended, it can be a symptom of depression. In order not to be unfounded, I decided that it was better to keep silent, given her obviously bad mood. Silently, I took out a bag of garbage from under the sink. After giving me a piercing look, she angrily took it to the trash can in the garage. Wanting to keep my distance, I decided to take a beer from the refrigerator and retire to the living room until dinner was ready. To tell the truth, I just wanted to avoid any communication with her. It seemed to me that most likely she was struggling with depression, and perhaps going to a psychiatrist would help her get the necessary treatment. But I didn't dare to touch on this topic, anticipating her reaction and not knowing if I was still ready for this. Before delving into my story, I need to tell you a little about Jill and me. My wife and I have been married for about 10 years, and during this time, we consciously decided not to have children, since she preferred her career. At 35, she looks very attractive, while I, a 36-year-old, can be attributed to the average type of appearance. I don't really stand out in the crowd. She holds a prominent position as the head of the underwriters department at a regional insurance company, and I work as an engineer at a local consulting firm. Financially, we are both well off and do not experience any difficulties. At first, our love and attraction to each other were very strong, but over the years, these feelings gradually weakened. After finishing dinner, I began to clean up the kitchen, and she went into the living room. While I was doing household chores, she suddenly said that she was going to visit our neighbor to chat. It was no secret that he and Fran, a housemate, were quite close and often spent a significant amount of time together. Fran, a divorced woman, has gone through a difficult period in the past. Her husband found out about her infidelity and decided to file for divorce. Without hesitation, he quickly packed up his things and moved to California, leaving Fran with an unaffordable mortgage on the house. Unfortunately for her, her ex-husband's income was about the same as hers, so alimony for her maintenance was not paid. In the absence of children, it seemed that in the end, he was the winner. I wasn't very pleased that Jill was spending so much time with her, but I had almost no control over the situation. Deciding to take advantage of her absence, I decided to inspect our bedroom for spiders. As soon as I finished cleaning up after dinner, armed with a flashlight, I carefully examined the room and furniture. To my relief, I did not find a single spider, but I came across a small brown bug at the head of the bed, which I quickly caught and put in an empty pill bottle. Continuing my search, I saw that another beetle was hiding under the pillow, which I immediately threw away. Thoughts began to stir in my head about the origin and belonging of these insects, as well as whether they were the cause of my bite. I turned to my friend Jake, who was very fond of gardening, in the hope that he would be able to give me answers to some questions. After making a phone call, I anxiously asked Jake, "I need your help. I came across an unusual bug in our bedroom, and it's unlike anything I've seen before. Do you think you can identify it?" Jake replied, "Of course, I will try. Can you give a description?" I replied, "It's even better if I take a close-up photo of it and send it to you by email." Jake agreed and said, "Sounds like a plan. Just don't forget to put something familiar next to it, like a penny, to determine its size." I said, "Of course, I will definitely do that. Thanks a lot, Jake." After about 10 minutes, I attached a photo of the bug to the email and sent it. After that, I leaned back in my chair and waited patiently for an answer. After about 20 minutes, my phone suddenly rang. Jim was on the other end. "Hi, you urgently need to contact the exterminator," he urgently informed. "You've got bed bugs, bed bugs." I was shocked. "But where did we get these bed bugs?" I was thinking. I've always thought of them as mythical creatures from fairy tales. Jim's response was disturbing and informative at the same time. Bed bugs, my friend, are coming back, and their destruction is not an easy task. Therefore, I strongly recommend contacting the exterminator as early as possible. By the way, have you or Jill traveled recently? People are found with these pests in hotels. They unknowingly bring them home in luggage or even on clothes. Surprisingly, in noisy cities, these pests can be found even in the workplace. It's strange, but for the last couple of months, we haven't traveled or stayed in hotel rooms. I also haven't heard of people bumping into them at work, at least not from Jill, I replied. But you must have picked them up from somewhere, as I have already said. It is advisable to contact the exterminator, who may have suggestions for solving this problem. If these pests have populated your bedroom and not much time has passed since their appearance, there is a chance that they live only in this room. Thanks for the help, Jake. I decided that it was necessary to investigate the bedroom for the presence of additional bed bugs or their origin. Since it was already late, the call of the exterminator will have to be postponed until the morning. Before heading to the bedroom, I turned on my good old computer and went to Wikipedia to find information about bed bugs. The wealth of knowledge about these tiny creatures turned out to be quite disturbing. However, I found comfort in the fact that Jill has not mentioned bites yet, which means we may not be dealing with a full-fledged invasion. But if these pests start laying eggs, the situation will quickly worsen. I walked resolutely into our bedroom, ready to start searching, starting with the bed that Jill and I had shared since our wedding day. I carefully combed through all the cracks and seams of the mattress, hoping to find any more bugs or traces of their presence. But apart from the two I had already found, there were no more traces of these uninvited creatures. When I bent down to examine the litter, my attention was attracted by a small cloth bag hidden among the layers of dust and rolls of wrapping paper that Jill kept there. In this satchel, Jill usually carried her things to work, especially on those days when she planned to visit a fitness club after it. Curious, I carefully took out the bag and began to examine its contents. The room turned out to be empty without bed bugs, but I came across traces indicating their presence. In addition, my attention was attracted by a kind of hardened residue resembling a dried substance stuck to the underside of the backrest. Curiosity got the better of me, and I cautiously sniffed at it, smelling a familiar smell reminiscent of the smell of her biological fluids. This unexpected discovery confused me and made me immediately reconsider my thoughts. In perplexity, I wondered what could have happened. Could this be evidence of her infidelity? But I reminded myself not to jump to conclusions. Perhaps there is a reasonable explanation for these observations. Although in my haste, I could not come up with one. Perhaps she lent it to a friend who returned it in this condition, although this is unlikely. If she's joking, then I need to quickly sort out the situation and decide what to do. Forgetting about the search for bed bugs, I returned the bag to its original place and retired to my cubicle, pouring myself a generous whiskey with ice. Before I came into conflict with her, I had to find out if she was really having an affair, with whom, and for how long. My further actions depended on this information. A conflict with her will only lead to denial, which will leave me without a clear solution and with a lingering sense of distrust. It wouldn't be the most constructive approach to preserving our marriage. What should I do to find out the truth? Hiring a private investigator is likely to be too expensive, and I have only one option left: to do it myself. Given the prevalence of electronic gadgets, I decided to turn to my computer and explore the available resources. It turned out that numerous websites offer strategies and products for catching unfaithful partners. I carefully studied the various options, assessing their suitability and availability in my particular situation. Judging by the appearance and scent from Jill's small bag, it was obvious that she was not going to the spa after work. Instead, she used this time for a date with her lover and put underwear in her bag for their meeting. It became clear that she planned to meet either at a motel or in a private house, and not do it in the back seat of a car. Armed with this information, I intended to strategically acquire certain items that would help me reveal details about her partner, the place, and frequency of these meetings. After careful consideration, I chose a compact recording device that could be discreetly hidden in her purse, as well as a GPS navigator that could be attached to her car. Considering that she used her mobile phone mainly for personal conversations, I doubted that tapping the phone would give any significant results. Therefore, the GPS navigator seemed to me a more effective means of monitoring her movements away from home. When I took out my credit card and started making a purchase by choosing express delivery, Jill's appearance took me by surprise. Not wanting to look for me, she returned to our bedroom, maintaining the same indifferent and depressed state that she had shown towards me lately. I finally understood the reason for her behavior. It became clear to me that she was hatching the idea of leaving me for her lover, which meant that I had to think about my financial security. I logged into my old computer and started making some bank and investment transfers. The fact that I took control of my finances into my own hands brought me some relief. In case I misread her intentions, I reassured myself that I could always undo these changes later. But deep down, I knew I was on the right track. As soon as I had concrete evidence of her infidelity, I planned to make changes to my insurance and will. 2 days later, the surveillance equipment I ordered was delivered. It didn't take me long to study the instructions attached to the GPS tracker and set up my laptop to monitor her. Without thinking twice, I snuck into the garage and discreetly attached a tracker under her car. After that, I quickly placed a mini recorder in the trunk of her car while she was visiting her friend Fran. In the evening, everything was ready. I calmed down and began to wait patiently, knowing that I would not have to wait long, since tomorrow was Thursday. That day, as usual, she stopped by the spa after work. Since she usually left for work before me in the morning, I traced the route of her car to her place of work using the GPS navigator installed on my laptop. Noticing that she had brought a small gym bag with her, I realized that most likely she was planning to meet her lover later. While she was driving, I distinctly heard the radio playing in the background, and then her voice talking on a mobile phone. Hi. Are you ready for the evening?" "What is it?" she asked. "Great, I can't wait. At the usual time and in the usual place, right?" "It suits me. See you later. I love you very much." My suspicions were confirmed when she confessed her love to him. It became clear that she was preparing to leave and be with him in the near future. It seemed that they had been in a love affair for a long time. Now, all I had to do was reveal his identity. Tonight, I planned to follow her after work, unnoticed, and find out who she was dating. Apparently, they used different cars, which would make it easier for me to observe their actions. In the afternoon, I left work early and settled down on a nearby street about 30 minutes before the end of her shift. I waited patiently in the parking lot, watching her car stand still. As soon as she finished work, her car finally started moving, and I tracked her movement on my laptop. I quickly started my car and followed the trail that led me to a red-roofed hotel located near the highway. A few minutes after her arrival, I pulled into the motel parking lot, trying to keep a considerable distance so as not to arouse suspicion. From a distance, I noticed that she was still sitting in her car near the office, but soon another car stopped next to her. A male driver got out of it, exchanged a wave of his hand with her, and proceeded to the office. A few minutes later, he left the office. I watched him get into his car and drive to the last block. She followed his example in her car, arriving at the place. They both got out of the cars and headed to room 142. At the entrance, she was carrying a small sports bag. Her lover seemed familiar to me, and I strained my brain trying to remember his identity. He had a slim build and an attractive appearance. Oh, I remembered. I met him at various office gatherings arranged by my wife, Jill. He was married to a woman who was noticeably larger than him, and it was clear that she had a short temper and excessive possessive attachment to her husband. I couldn't help but wonder how she would react if she found out that her husband was cheating on her. The names of Joe and Melinda Bateman, with whom we once sat at the same table at one of the parties, flashed through my head. At the time, I didn't even know about the deep connection between Joe and my wife, and I was left wondering what was the impetus for this unexpected romance. Suddenly, I had a mischievous idea that promised to turn everything around. After getting out of the car, I went into the motel building and asked for the phone directory of the city. Fingers quickly flipped through the pages until they found the contact information of Joseph and Melinda Bateman. Picking up my mobile phone, I dialed their number, impatiently waiting for an answer. "Hello, may I speak to Mrs. Bateman? This is Melinda Bateman. Can I find out who is calling?" "Hello, it's not important, but you know me. Can I ask the purpose of your call? Do you need my husband? Is my husband at the gym right now? I am obliged to inform you that he is staying at the Kranaya-Kisha Hotel, located near the junction on Maple Road, namely in room 142, accompanied by a woman." "That's not true. He would never behave like that. I think you should see for yourself." Mrs. Bateman abruptly ended the call, leaving me with a smirk on my face. I got back in the car and waited patiently for developments. It took about 20 minutes before a large Cadillac abruptly drove into the parking lot and quickly parked near room 142. An angry woman got out of the car, who made sure that Jill's lover's car was nearby. Without hesitation, she began to knock vigorously on the door of room 142, intending to meet the person who was there. After a while, the door creaked open, and Joe cautiously peeked into the small crack formed by the door chain. Ignoring this obstacle, the woman kicked the door hard, accidentally hitting Joe and causing him suffering. Watching Joe and Jill being chastised by an angry woman, I oddly enough got carried away by the unfolding scene. But then it quickly dawned on me that I had greatly miscalculated the depth of the woman's anger. A loud bang reverberated through the room, momentarily blocking my view of the open doorway. Despite the limitations of my review, it was obvious that the consequences for Joe and Jill were far from favorable. Shock seized me when I saw that Melinda had returned, clutching apparently a gun in her hands. Hurriedly jumping into her car, she screeched out of the parking lot. A few moments after she left, the doors leading to the neighboring rooms opened, and people cautiously came out to sort out what was happening. The office worker hurriedly descended into the corridor, looked into the room, then hurriedly shifted his gaze to the person sitting next to him and urgently exclaimed, "Dial 911 quickly." I froze in place, fearing that if I started the engine and drove away, it would only draw attention to my unusual behavior. Instead, I abandoned the car and joined the growing crowd surrounding the entrance to room 142. From this spot, I could make out Joe's lifeless figure sprawled on the bed. Jill remained out of sight of the quickly arriving paramedics and police, and I had to make a responsible decision. There was no doubt that my wife was also in the room. Should I rush there to check on her? I couldn't shake the feeling that she was no longer my wife and therefore not my responsibility. Moreover, is it my fault that I got involved with Melinda? I believe that I should not be responsible for the choice of another person. At this time, the police promptly registered the scene of the incident, and paramedics entered the room. After a while, an ambulance doctor came out of the room and, shaking his head disapprovingly, signaled to the police's sergeant. It became clear to me that both Joe and Jill were injured. When some people started to disperse, I decided to follow their example without attracting attention. I calmly got into my car and drove away. When I got out of the car, the police detectives and members of the press who had arrived were just beginning to disperse. Some might say that I acted callously by not staying to find out what happened to my wife, but I believed that she had violated our marital vow, which relieved me of any responsibility to her. Now that she was injured, I must admit that my previous words may have seemed harsh, but it is important to understand that I was still overcome with anger at her. But at the same time, I felt sympathy for her. Here is the latest information. In the evening of the same day, about an hour or two after my return, 2 police officers came to our house. Although I knew that their visit was related to the events at the motel, I pretended that I didn't know anything about this incident. "Can I help you?" I asked. "Is Jill Donovan your wife?" one of the officers asked. "Yes, that's her." "Any problems?" I answered reluctantly. They informed me, "Sir, we regret to inform you that your wife has passed away." When he reported this news, both he and his interlocutor expressed remorse and sorrow, as if they had worked well at transmitting such terrifying information. Now it was my turn to be in shock and disbelief upon learning that my wife had passed away. Although when I left the motel I had some uncertainty, I felt that she had been injured. But death? How could this happen? Before she left, she mentioned that she was going to the gym. The officers exchanged anxious glances, after which they replied, "She has been found, sir, dead." "What? Where?" They looked increasingly concerned as they replied, "At a motel on Maple, sir." Why was she at the motel? I began to feel uneasy about my performance. "She was accompanied by a man, sir, and his wife discovered them and killed them." How awful. Which of the officers is dealing with this situation? I just found out that my wife was unfaithful, so I'm not completely surprised. Have you detained this man's wife? Unfortunately, she also passed away, sir. I was almost speechless. Oh my God. Yes, sir. Are you going to be all right, sir? Yes, thank you for sharing this information. Where's my wife now? She was taken to the city morgue, sir. Thank you, officers, for the information. I'll go there in the morning to identify her and arrange for her burial. Good night, I replied, closing the door behind me. Although there was no expected shock, I did not feel any remorse about my actions. There were more pressing matters. I immediately dialed Jill's parents' number to inform them of the tragedy. At first, they were stunned and could not believe that their daughter had died in a motel room with her lover. The next morning, we agreed to meet at the morgue to discuss the final preparations for the burial. The atmosphere was heavy and sad, and I felt that they were going to have a difficult time. After our meeting, I called my parents to report what had happened. Like Jill's parents, they were shocked and had a hard time coming to terms with the fact that Jill was unfaithful and she was no longer alive. I realized that this news upset them very much because they have always treated Jill with love. Until recently, I loved her. But the strain our marriage has been under in the last few months has caused my affection for her to weaken, and the discovery of her infidelity only strengthened these feelings. My love for her completely disappeared, and I felt that I was losing her. I couldn't even mourn her anymore. Suddenly, it dawned on me that my phone call to Melinda, in which I informed her about my husband's infidelity, could potentially be traced to me. As a precaution, I decided to contact my lawyer the next morning and make an appointment to discuss the deaths of my wife and Joe. Although I didn't think I had done anything illegal, I wanted to protect myself just in case. The police were diligently investigating the cause of Joe's wife's reaction, and I wanted to secure my position on this issue. In the evening, I decided to go to bed early, but a restful sleep did not give me peace as I found myself locked in an endless cycle, replaying the events of the past day in my mind. I have been thinking tirelessly, wondering if it was possible to do otherwise. In the end, I came to the conclusion that no, there was nothing I could have done differently. In the following days, I arranged a meeting with a lawyer to discuss the situation further. When I talked about the events that had taken place, the lawyer assured me that I was not legally responsible for the tragic death of my wife and her lover. Having received this confirmation, the burden of guilt began to fall off my shoulders. Strangely, I never received any message from the police about my previous phone call. Perhaps it was a relief. Despite the difficulties I faced, I believe that I came out of the marriage in a better position compared to a possible divorce. Being the sole beneficiary of the inheritance, I inherited all the assets of my ex-wife. If we were getting divorced, I would have to share everything, which could become a heavy financial burden. At the age of 36, I am still young and am actively looking for a new partner, intending to start a family and have children in my next marriage. It is interesting to reflect on how the bed bug bite marked the beginning of this turning point. Fortunately, I immediately turned to the exterminator, who conducted a thorough check and confirmed that there were no more bed bugs. Story 2. I am a 34-year-old pilot working for a well-known aviation company. For the last 3 years, I have been happily married to a wonderful woman named Ava, who is 30 years old. Our paths crossed 5 years ago at a social reception where she held a senior position in the same company. Despite the fact that her role mainly consisted of performing corporate duties in the back office, we gradually became closer, meeting at various office events. I was captivated by her beauty, self-confidence, and intelligence, and we went on a romantic trip together surrounded by a constant stream of amazing personalities. I was fascinated not just by her looks, but by her intelligence. She had a remarkable mind which did not allow me to get off the ground, either figuratively or literally. A relationship with a pilot is not an easy matter given the busy work schedule, jet lag, and eternal fatigue, but Ava showed exceptional understanding and empathy for these difficulties. Unlike my previous relationships with flight attendants or ground staff, which inevitably turned out to be short-lived, Ava brought a sense of novelty and renewal to my life. That's how our connection came about. After 2 years of dating, we finally decided to tie the knot. However, significant changes have taken place over these couple of years. Although I understand that married life cannot be as exciting as the dating stage, it should still bring joy, otherwise, why get married at all? Recently, I noticed a change in her behavior that alerted me. Perhaps this transformation took place gradually, and I only noticed it recently. I'm not sure. It seems that Ava is turning into the complete opposite of what she was before. I found that I was attracted to Ava for reasons completely opposite to those that usually delight me in a partner. You see, my work requires incredible physical and mental loads, and this inevitably affects my emotional state. But Ava understood and respected this moment of my life. She understood that I could not always be available to her every minute of every day. There were times when she urgently needed my help, and I, due to the specifics of my work, could not deal with her affairs for several hours. It is for this reason that my previous relationships did not work out. My past breakups can be explained by 2 main factors: lack of time and self-doubt. In most cases, it was a combination of both factors. I found myself unable to give my partners the necessary time and attention, or they became more and more insecure about themselves due to the fact that I often communicated with attractive colleagues during long, lonely flights. The relationship with Ava was preserved only because she never harbored any fears for me. But as I said, 4 months ago, the situation changed. It began to change the day before Ava's birthday. I found myself in a situation where I had to replace a colleague at work. This was quite annoying as I was planning to take 2 days off, including Ava's birthday, to celebrate it and spend time together. On the eve of this momentous event, I even booked a table on the coast. But fate decreed otherwise. My colleague had to come urgently for family reasons, although I don't remember the details now, but I think it was due to the fact that his daughter was ill. Having no other choice, I had to sacrifice my planned vacation to replace him. I apologized to Ava, saying that my absence was temporary and that I would be back the next morning to celebrate her real birthday. Her cheeks were flushed with embarrassment. I explained to her that the circumstances do not depend on me, and I have no other choice but to leave. I offered her a choice: either stay at the resort overnight or come home with me and go back the next day. After careful consideration, she decided to stay at the resort alone. I left in the evening on a domestic flight, which allowed me to return by the morning of the next day. Immediately after landing, I contacted Ava and informed her that I would be at the resort within an hour. Despite my attempts to compensate for the absence of the night, she was dissatisfied. During the whole time spent together, she was mostly silent and in a sullen mood. It seemed that she was celebrating her birthday as if it was a favor done to me. I understood her anger and frustration caused by unexpected employment at work, but her irritability continued to persist. A week later, I approached her, finding out that she still harbored a grudge against me. She claimed she wasn't angry, she was just used to my absence. There was sarcasm in her words, understandable even to a child. I longed for a deep conversation with her, but she brushed it off, considering it useless and stating that she would always have to compromise. I wondered if she was trying to make herself look like a victim in this situation. The tone of our conversations varied greatly, fluctuating between mirthless, angry, sarcastic, and average. On the one hand, she seemed annoyed and found flaws in all aspects of my life. Throughout all these months, we have repeatedly come into conflict trying to solve our problems. I admitted that I was far from perfect, and she tried to emphasize those cases when I behaved like an unbearable person. I admitted my shortcomings and promised to improve, but when it was my turn to express my claims, she began to defend herself and shift the blame onto me. She explained her actions by claiming that I provoked her to sharp behavior. Surprisingly, this scenario most often baffled me. Feeling perplexed, I confided in my co-pilot, wondering if he had encountered similar problems given that the situation at work inevitably affects our behavior. I shared my situation with him because we were on the same flight. He listened attentively to me and then, with a grin, remarked, "Wow, are all women like that?" Being interested in his remark, I asked, and he said that his wife also expressed concern about his physical and emotional detachment. He further assured me that blaming husbands is a common pattern of behavior among women. I want to make it clear that I have no intention of offending anyone because I sincerely believe that not all women are narcissistic. After this conversation with a colleague, I tried to dismiss this topic, hoping that her unpredictable mood swings are just a passing stage. Unfortunately, they didn't go as I had hoped. There was a new problem that made her feel unexpectedly insecure. She raises an eyebrow whenever I get a new haircut or buy a unique fragrance. Her constant question is, "Who do you want to impress?" At first, it seemed like a frivolous joke, but soon it turned out that she was really worried about my preferences in self-care. It is worth noting that she knows that I work as a pilot and understands the need to maintain a well-groomed appearance. After all, I can't walk around in my pajamas. When I talk about my colleagues at work, she immediately gets hung up on the names of women. She asks if I find them attractive, and this constant weariness begins to weigh me down. I convince her again and again that I will never betray her and that she is the only one I need. I give her countless reasons why no one will ever be able to replace her, as it was at the beginning of our journey together. Therefore, it makes me sad to watch Ava change, turning into the opposite of the one I initially fell in love with. I'm not sure what direction my marriage is heading in. If someone has encountered this, please share your advice. She used to be understanding and self-confident, but lately, she has been nagging, and she has become more insecure. Whether these changes occurred gradually or suddenly, I do not know. This situation is especially disturbing for me because I faced a similar problem in a previous relationship, which eventually ended. Some of you have suggested that perhaps the common denominator of all my breakups was myself, which indicates my guilt. Taking this review seriously, I made sincere efforts to improve the situation on my part. I focused on being more attentive both mentally and emotionally when I was at home. I tried very hard to pamper her and assure her happiness. Moreover, she even admitted that I had eliminated all valid reasons for her complaints. Tomorrow will be our wedding anniversary, and I've been carefully planning for several months how to fix the disaster that occurred on her birthday. I took a proactive step. I took a week off from work to fully devote myself to this special event. I even informed my boss that I would be out of the country at that time, unavailable for any emergency situations at work. But I deliberately decided not to inform Ava about these plans. Instead, I pretended to forget about the upcoming anniversary and secretly prepare a surprise for her. I have developed a plan for our anniversary date today according to the work schedule. This month, I had a night shift, which allowed me to carry out my plans. As usual, I left for work in the evening, intending to return closer to midnight and surprise her. I wanted to take her on a week-long vacation. Fortunately, Her work in the back office allowed her to easily coordinate an urgent week-long vacation, since in the past she had successfully coped with such requests. I diligently went shopping, carefully choosing the dresses that she would need for the upcoming vacation. In addition, as a special gift, I quietly purchased for her a stunning diamond locket on one hairpin. Anticipation was building in me, but I managed to keep everything a secret. Meanwhile, with the approach of our wedding anniversary, Ava's behavior has changed for the worse. Despite her confidence that I had forgotten about this momentous event, I couldn't help but imagine her delight when I finally revealed my grand plan. Tonight, that moment will finally come. I packed up and left the house at the usual time. When I left, Ava was next to me. She was clearly angry but preferred to remain silent. Worried, I asked her how she was feeling, to which she stoically replied with a nod. Secretly amused, I wondered how she would react if I really forgot something. I came to the mall to buy extra toiletries for an upcoming trip, and so I leisurely wandered around the store whiling away the time until I got to my destination. Around midnight, I bought bouquets, cupcakes, candles, and other delicious things that I saw in the store. After long waits, I carefully organized a wonderful and extraordinary surprise for my beloved wife in honor of the anniversary of our acquaintance. When the clock struck 11:30 p.m., I said goodbye to my loved ones and began to implement my carefully thought-out plan. Returning to the house, I deftly used my key to sneak in, intending to surprise Ava with my unexpected presence. But when I entered the living room, I felt that she was talking to another person. I thought she was on the phone discussing my forgetfulness about the holiday. When I entered the room intending to surprise her with cupcakes and a bouquet, I was stunned to see her completely undressed. It was an unexpected shock that froze me in place. She looked equally surprised. The thought flashed through my head that she somehow found out about my surprise plan and prepared a counter-surprise for me. Just as I was about to laugh and admit defeat, a naked man appeared from the next bathroom. In an instant, everything unfolded in front of me, and I was speechless. Instinctively reacting, I threw everything that was in my hands, holding the man and demanding to know his identity. At the same time, she rushed to free him. A sinister grin spread across my face, and I stared at her menacingly, wondering if I should strangle her. But circumstances dictated that I focus on the man standing in front of me and grabbed him tightly. Fortunately, I refrained from strangling him, as that would have led to a completely separate conversation. It is unlikely that she would have passed such a test. I was overcome with anger. I couldn't control myself. Somehow, the man managed to break free, and he stared at Ava as if she had to make sure everything was ready before contacting him. I wanted to hit him, but Ava grabbed my arm to calm me down. The man quickly gathered his clothes and quickly left the house, getting dressed on the go. Meanwhile, I was screaming at the top of my lungs, demanding answers from Ava to questions about him. She begged me, said she could explain everything, and asked me to let the man go. I hurriedly approached the man again, urging him to stop and tell me his identity. He spun around and shouted back at me, explaining that he had been brought here at the expense of my wife's payment to his agency. At the same time, he stressed that his presence here does not pursue the goal of entering into a romantic relationship. Feeling stunned, I turned to Ava and asked how true his statement was. Squeezing my hand tightly, she began to sob, admitting that she had indeed hired escort services because of her overwhelming loneliness. It dawned on me that she thinks I forgot about our anniversary, and this prompted her to act out of anger and despair. She wanted to hurt me because I inadvertently ruined her birthday. According to her, I didn't give her the time and attention she wanted so much. I put work first and was emotionally detached. Curious, I asked when these feelings arose. She said that although she had repeatedly thought about it when she was angry and lonely, this was the first time when she plucked up the courage and made an order. She said she felt overwhelmed and suffocated because of my behavior that day, which led her to want to clarify the situation a little. She categorically claimed that she had not cheated on me since I arrived before everything had time to happen. I still don't know if they've done anything yet, but judging by the state of the bedroom, it looks like they haven't done anything yet. It's been a week since this incident, but I still can't come to terms with the fact that my wife was on the verge of cheating, despite her promise never to repeat her actions. The anniversary was eventually ruined. I was so depressed that I didn't even bother to cancel the booking of tickets. The next morning, the airline called me and informed me that I had checked in on the website but did not show up. As a result, I canceled the hotel reservation for this time. I retired to my bedroom for almost the whole day and drowned my sorrows with alcohol until I lost consciousness. I didn't want to understand what was going on in her head that day, and I didn't have the strength to do it. But I knew about her presence at home by the periodic knocking on the door accompanied by pleas and requests. Realizing that staying in this room would lead to suffocation, I contacted the boss on my own initiative in the evening and informed him that my planned vacation was unexpectedly canceled. In this regard, I asked to withdraw my vacation. Realizing my predicament, he put me back on the work schedule and allowed me to start work the next day. I needed time to gather my thoughts before making any decisive choice. Although I knew she hadn't cheated on me yet, it was obvious that she was on the verge of it. If I really forget, will that justify her infidelity? I'm not sure. She begs me to give her another opportunity, assuring me that she will do everything possible to restore our marriage. Deep down, I still love her and don't want to lose her, but the pain is too much for me to forgive and move on. I didn't tell my colleagues or friends about it because they know Ava, and I don't want to tarnish her reputation. I would be very grateful for a new point of view on this issue. This incident deeply affected me, so much so that I felt the need to turn to a psychotherapist. Ava, realizing the seriousness of the situation, decided to accompany me, and we went through a course of couples therapy together. After that night, our communication became sparse, which led me to think that contacting a therapist could be a useful step forward. After making an appointment, we had to wait 2 weeks before we could get an appointment. This delay only made me even more upset. Noticing my unusual behavior, my boss and colleagues suggested that I take a vacation. As a pilot, I am responsible for the lives of hundreds of passengers on board the plane, so it is extremely important for me to be focused and collected. Taking a break seemed like a logical decision to me. I decided to leave for my ancestral home located in a serene rural area. After the death of my grandparents, my lonely distant uncle settled in their house, diligently taking care of the household. Naturally, it became an ideal refuge for me, where I could find solace and clarity. When I was getting ready to leave with my suitcases in my hands, Ava held out her hand to me and asked where I was going. I waved her off contemptuously, not wanting to say a word. On the day of the therapist's appointment, I returned home. These blissful 15 days spent in nature and the first session of psychotherapy gave some respite. Next, the therapist gave valuable advice, advising both of us. I decided to temporarily live separately from Ava because her very presence has become a source of strong frustration for me, preventing me from moving forward. Ava started complaining, expressing unwillingness to return to her parents as she was afraid that they would notice problems in our marriage. She persistently urged me to find another place to stay. Guided by the desire to distance myself from her unpleasant behavior, I decided to rent an apartment. When I started the second session, my mental state improved significantly, and I felt a newfound liberation. When she said that living alone leads to her mental disorder, she suggested that I move in with her, but I still hadn't recovered from the past and wasn't ready for it, so I respectfully declined. She promised to fix everything and make an effort for our relationship, but I hesitated. At that moment, a psychotherapist intervened and asked her about the source of her mental disorder. Ava said that it was difficult for her to maintain stability when she was alone. She longed for companionship, always had a roommate, and never lived alone. When the therapist suggested that I think about moving, I remained adamant and expressed a desire to spend more time alone. It was at this moment that Ava exploded with emotions, showing her disappointment that, in her opinion, I am selfish and constantly refuse to compromise. In a fit of anger, she confessed that on her birthday, when I was urgently leaving for work, she felt insignificant in my life. Since then, she has made a commitment to prioritize her own happiness, as I do in my life. As a result, she began participating in numerous paid and unpaid one-night stands. When the therapist asked if she felt guilty during these meetings, she admitted that at first, she felt guilty, but she justified her actions by reminding herself that I live on my own terms, claiming that she deserves the same right in the pursuit of happiness. Then the therapist asked if these meetings really brought her happiness, to which she replied that they did not bring her true happiness. Participating in such meetings for a moment relieved her feeling of loneliness, although it did not bring real happiness. Mentally, she justified her actions, believing that given the presence of glamorous women around me, I should be involved in flirting with my colleagues. It was then that her self-doubt began to manifest itself. At first, when I heard her confession, I reacted with visible anger, but as the therapist delved into her emotions, my anger gradually subsided. I sat quietly, perhaps because deep down, I felt sorry for her. I'm still not sure if she really suffered from depression. Alternatively, she could have fabricated her claims to justify her own actions. When she finished telling her version, I made it clear that I would demand separation because I simply could not live with a woman who was cheating on me, no matter what arguments she gave. Not every person works at a regular job from 9 to 5 and returns home every evening. Many professions require a lot of dedication and self-sacrifice, but this does not give the right to cheat on a partner. If this were the case, then every military spouse, sailor spouse, naval officer spouse, and so on would have an excuse for betraying their obligations. Ava continued to plead with me, urging me to reconsider my decision and promising to make every effort to save our marriage, but her emotional breakdown didn't convince me. I know it sounds cruel, but I can't maintain a relationship with a person who cheated on me and tried to justify it by making up stories about my possible infidelity. When we returned home, I made a difficult decision to contact her parents because Ava was inconsolable and did not want to accept my choice. I promised her that I would keep her truth a secret, and that was the maximum degree of support I could offer her. A few hours later, her parents arrived, and I explained to them that we had decided to break up because of our incompatibility caused by my busy work schedule. They were shocked by this news because up to that moment, we were considered quite a prosperous and happy couple, but Ava's emotional breakdown caused them to suspect that she might not quite agree with the decision. Her father noticed this and asked Ava directly if she agreed with the explanation I gave. To my surprise, Ava answered no, expressing a desire to stay married and work on our relationship. I was stunned by her unexpected position. Her parents looked at me skeptically, wondering how a mutual decision could be considered if she wanted to stay married. I explained to them that the main problem is my busy work schedule, and until my retirement, we will not be able to find a clear solution. It seemed to them that they easily offered me to change my profession or take on a less responsible role. I couldn't help but think, really? Is it really that simple? If this conversation had taken place before her betrayal, I might have considered changing my profession, but now I couldn't imagine giving up my profession because of a woman who betrayed me, right? Having no other choice, I was forced to reveal the truth to Ava's parents. Her father was furious and accused me of making up stories to get rid of his daughter. Disappointed with the situation, I pressed Ava to speak up, warning her that if necessary, I would sue and invite a therapist. Finally, she spoke as expected, showing her narcissistic tendencies and placing the blame solely on me. Ava began to justify her actions, explaining them allegedly by my selfishness and emotional inaccessibility, claiming that as a result, she felt compelled to act. Her father ordered Ava's mother to pack her things but kept silent about me, despite his wife's pleas to intervene and convince his father otherwise. He remained indifferent. The next day, I started the divorce application process, which is still ongoing. I am telling this story not out of any hidden motives but in order to attract the attention of people of responsible professions and shed light on the problems they may face. 3 months later, we were no longer husband and wife. Ava behaved like an egoist to the last and did not want to sign a divorce contract, and I had to put pressure on her that I would tell her boss about her antics with an escort guy. 2 years have passed, and now I'm dating a beautiful woman who loves me very much and does not bother her that I work often. She supports me in everything, just like I support her. I also found out that my ex-wife married her husband, and their family is in a bad financial situation since her husband is addicted to illegal drugs, and he spends everything they earn on banned substances. Life with me, a wealthy and loving person, did not suit her, and probably the way she lives now is a punishment for her. Story 3. My wife, who is 36 years old, and I, a 39-year-old man, have been in a relationship for 7 years and have been married for 5 years. Throughout our journey together, we have experienced both ups and downs, just like any other couple, but I firmly believe that our love and trust are a reliable foundation. We both had stable jobs that provided us with a comfortable and well-fed life, but about a year ago, my wife, whom we will call Anna, became interested in personal finances. She immersed herself in books, YouTube videos, and seminars on this topic. I heartily supported her new enthusiasm, appreciating her desire to improve our financial situation and ensure a more prosperous future for both of us. Admittedly, my knowledge of finance is limited, and my involvement has been limited to basic investments such as mutual funds. My understanding of this concept was very superficial and did not contain any detailed information. In fact, I didn't even invest in them except for the mandatory tax savings scheme. Being from the field of marketing, I had a very limited understanding of finance, even in matters of taxation and tax exemption. I, like many others, relied on my tax consultants. But with the appearance on social networks of reputable specialists in finance of the new time, Anna's curiosity about this topic was awakened. She developed an interest in understanding the stock market and cryptocurrencies. The stock market is an area that intrigued her very much. I still find it understandable because it has been on the market for a long time, but cryptocurrency is far from understanding for me. At first, I attended several online seminars with Anna, but the whole idea seemed completely unfamiliar to me. Everything was going well until she began to devote more and more time to a successful investor whom she met at one of these seminars. We'll call him D. She insisted that D was her mentor, giving her knowledge about investment strategies and wealth accumulation. The idea of mentoring is becoming increasingly popular in America nowadays. It seems that everyone wants to become a mentor. In addition, she gradually stopped contributing financially to our household expenses. She justified herself by investing money in our future, so I refrained from complaining, trusting her. I took on the responsibility of paying all the bills around the house on my own. At first, I didn't pay attention to it, but over time, their relationship began to cause serious concerns. Anna began to spend too much time with D, often staying up late. I didn't want her to be controlled, but her behavior became more and more disturbing because she began to spend more and more time with questionable personalities. I couldn't ignore the alarms anymore. She justified her limited time by saying that she had a day job and could only pursue her hobby in the evenings. I expressed my disappointment, hoping for a deeper understanding between us, but instead, she began to defend herself and belittle me, ridiculing my ignorance of investment issues. She even began to predict that one day she would make us rich, and I regretted that I did not support her. It was painful for me to hear these words, especially since I fully supported her. I tried not to interfere, respecting her independence, but when she began to show more disturbing behavior, I had to be vigilant. One of the notable changes was her choice of clothes, which became more and more provocative. Despite my misgivings, I refrained from addressing this issue because I didn't want to appear controlling, but her actions and the company she was in became even more alarming, and I could no longer ignore the situation. Previously, I had never expressed my opinion about her choice of clothes, so once again, I kept silent, but when she started ignoring our relationship, I felt compelled to voice my concerns. She, as usual, brushed them off, saying that her actions are aimed at the benefit of our future. I was advised to support her and refrain from condemning her. Gradually, I began to move away from her, believing that I was carrying the burden of our relationship alone. I assumed that she would notice the changes in my behavior, but they went unnoticed. She was busy immersing herself in the world of investing. She had completely forgotten about my existence. We were just housemates, not exchanging a single word unless absolutely necessary. Despite the fact that we lived under the same roof, we rarely even crossed paths. After the usual work, she was in a hurry to attend seminars or mentoring classes. We rarely saw each other. One evening, when I happened to pass by the hall where her mentor D used to teach finance classes, something inside me made me go in and see what was going on there. To my surprise, I saw that a completely different event was taking place there. Curiosity got the better of me, and I approached the security staff to ask what kind of seminar the D company was holding. He said that this is not a regular occurrence and that the last seminar took place a few months ago. At the exit, I noticed a small group of young people in t-shirts with the name of a reputable financier. Curious, I approached them and found out that they were actively advertising an entry to a financial masterclass. I eagerly extracted all the necessary information from them. It turned out that the seminars are conducted by the influential person himself every 2 or 3 months, and mentoring classes are conducted by people like D and Keys. In addition, they clarified that these classes are held not daily but weekly. The specified time is from 19 to 21 hours. Previously, Anna did not return home until midnight. I gathered information about the cafe and left. The next day, I asked Anna if she had any classes that day. She replied curtly that she had classes every day. I didn't say anything, but judging by the information I received the day before, her classes are held only on Saturdays, and this day was Thursday. After finishing my evening chores, I decided to go to a cafe and found her sitting next to D. He gently put his hands on her waist and touched his lips to her cheeks. Leaning towards each other, they whispered pleasant words in each other's ears. At the sight of their flirtatious glances, I was seized with a dreary feeling. I kept my distance. I needed time to comprehend what I saw. Trying to fix the truth, I secretly recorded videos, expecting her to deny her guilt. I watched in silence until their communication became more intimate. He began to gently kiss her ears, making various subtle gestures. Having decided to collect evidence, I recorded every moment. At the moment when they were about to kiss passionately, I boldly approached their table and took a seat directly opposite. Anna froze in place, and her partner looked at her in confusion. I introduced myself as her future ex-husband, which made him grin. Anna tried to explain, and I suggested that she continue. She mentioned that it was a one-on-one mentoring session, to which I replied skeptically, yes, of course, mentoring through lip-to-lip interaction. A fair partner, finding humor in the situation, left the table. His behavior indicated that he was a gambler. I asked Anna directly if she had slept with him. She reluctantly confessed, saying it was just part of an investment deal. I couldn't figure out what kind of deal it was. Despite her attempts to justify herself, I remained unconvinced. As part of her personal finance training, she believed that Eddie had assured her of the opportunity to earn a significant amount of money by completing a course of study and fulfilling his requests. And what kind of requests were they? Maybe to enter into an intimate relationship with him? She admitted that she agreed. I knew about her intentions and suggested that he not embarrass her with some vague excuses. I put up with this situation for a while and then asked if she was forced to do it. She confirmed that everything was consensual. I noted that apparently she enjoyed it despite the fact that she claimed she wasn't going to do it. She made the decision to secure our future, at least once. This discovery brought me to the brink of insanity, and I rushed to her in a rage. Who gave her the right to take responsibility for our future? I told her straight out that she shouldn't worry about my well-being, as I am quite capable of taking care of myself. My outburst was so strong that it caused disapproving glances from people at neighboring tables. Unable to contain my anger any longer, I abruptly got up and left the cafe. She followed me, trying to hold me by grabbing my hands. I forcibly pushed her away and made it clear that she could go to communicate with her mentor, and she was not welcome in my house. Overwhelmed with a sense of emptiness, I returned home. I was completely devastated when I realized that my trust in her was completely undermined. It was hard to believe that she used the pretense of studying personal finance as a cover for her infidelity. Soon after, Anna arrived and tried to explain that it was not just entertainment. She claimed that she entered into an intimate relationship with another person solely in order to get an idea of money-making strategies. I strongly asked her to leave the house, but she begged me, insisting that this was not cheating and that she had no emotional connection with another person. She claimed it was purely a business matter, although I couldn't figure out what kind of business she was involved in. I explained that such behavior with a mentor in order to teach personal finance is not justified, since there are legitimate ways to make money without resorting to such actions. She was furious and said that she would prove me incorrectness. According to her, I lacked the sophistication to understand this modern concept. She decided to prove that she is able to earn significant funds, in particular through influence marketing. She belittled our understanding of the importance of investing at an early age, considering it just stupidity. In addition, she predicted that I would retire without any financial security, relying only on a state pension, while she would accumulate billions. She warned me that I would greatly regret this decision. In response, I made it clear to her that she was free to realize her aspirations, but not within the framework of our relationship. After packing her things, she left. 2 days later, namely on Saturday, she unexpectedly returned. At that moment, I found myself lying on the couch and accidentally looking at something on the screen. Looking at me, she stressed, "No, I'm not going to ask or apologize." Her goal was solely to pick up the things left behind. Without answering anything, she packed up all her things and quickly left. It was obvious that there was no remorse in her behavior, since for her, the act of infidelity was a priority over our once dear relationship. Given our lack of significant property to argue about, the separation process, in theory, should go relatively smoothly. It's unbelievable that she admitted that she cheated on you just for the sake of a relationship. It's really funny. It's never been about money, but it's always about AP. He certainly helped teach her some valuable lessons, but it's very disturbing. She doesn't understand how important it is to invest in a long-term relationship. Perhaps Anna's supposed investment opportunity looks more like a scam than a real financial undertaking. Although I don't know much about personal finance, one thing is for sure, any promise of fast money or extravagant income should be alarming. Building legitimate wealth is not an easy task, and of course, does not happen overnight, but now I have no concerns about this. My divorce was officially finalized last week, and the process went quite smoothly. Fortunately, my ex-wife did not have significant property that could be disputed. Given that our housing was a rented house, in addition, as for alimony, our incomes were almost equal, and it was she who was wrong. Therefore, I was not obliged to provide her with any financial support. We closed our joint account and divided the funds among ourselves. Besides, since we don't have children, there was no need to discuss alimony. I am very grateful that we don't have children. The situation would become incredibly difficult, and I understand why many Americans are hesitant to have children because of this unpredictability. But it's not as simple as it might seem. I still can't move away from the feelings associated with her betrayal. She spreads rumors that I will eventually crawl to her and beg for reconciliation when she becomes rich, risking personal finances. I replied with a simple good luck. She tells everyone that our divorce happened because I was unsure of her success. She called me controlling, jealous, and other negative things. Despite this, I tried to keep a smile while listening to her accusations. To shed light on the truth, I shared with her a video of her cuddling with her partner. The revelation made her visibly embarrassed. Our mutual friends quickly changed their allegiance. The last information I received says that she moved in with her mother during the divorce process. It is obvious that she does not feel remorse for the damage caused. I do not know if her alleged interest in personal finance and investments was genuine or if it was just an excuse to have an affair with another person. If she managed to successfully sort out her finances, then she's doing great. I'm not interested in money received dishonestly. One more thing, I've been watching a lot of investing videos lately. Perhaps I'm jumping to conclusions too quickly, but it seems to me that there are a lot of free videos on the internet that have enough information for beginners. I very much doubt that a mentor is needed in this case. You can learn this yourself. I'm actively avoiding any discussions related to it at the moment. Mentally, it unsettled me. To distract myself, I became interested in painting again. In addition, I became a member of a fitness club to lose extra calories. I intend to give preference to a healthy diet and limit alcohol consumption since before the divorce, I indulged myself excessively, which led to significant weight gain. I will keep an eye on all the achievements and improvements along the way. Unfortunately, Anna became a victim of this fraudulent scheme. Do you remember the influential person who posed as a financial expert and conducted seminars? Unfortunately, it turned out that he was a fraudster who deceived innocent people by promising them significant profits. Anna allocated a significant part of her income, about 30%, to the implementation of a certain scheme in the hope of making a substantial profit. In addition, there were rumors that she even resorted to selling valuable things, such as a treasured diamond ring and a platinum necklace, in order to fully immerse herself in investment activities. Unfortunately, it turned out that all this was nothing more than a deceptive scam. The person who pushed Anna to participate in fraud is currently hiding from the authorities, and his accomplice, including his accomplice D, have been detained. An investigation is underway. As soon as it became known about this scandal, Anna was subjected to ridicule and mockery from all sides. Anna, who had previously boasted of her future wealth, showed off her new knowledge with great pleasure and humiliated those who did not have sufficient investment experience. And now, after recent events, all those whom she mocked are now directing their attention to her, ridiculing her in return. One of our mutual friends told me that Anna resorted to blocking most of the people who made fun of her. In addition, she disabled her social media accounts due to the numerous tags she received in connection with a post about a financial expert. She came to his defense, which means that people will target her as well. It is important not to celebrate prematurely, and that's exactly what she's been doing all this time. As for me, I have made significant progress. I have successfully lost weight and am now focused on muscle training, which I really like. In addition, I have rediscovered my passion for painting, and it brings me great joy. But I'm not in a hurry to date yet. It's not about forgetting the past, it's just that I don't feel ready for it. I sincerely appreciate all the support I have received. They managed to escape capture and hide in another country with the stolen funds. This news came as a shock, especially considering that the previous message contained a hint of the arrest of an honest partner. Talking about what happened, Anna looked devastated. There was suffering in her eyes. It was obvious that she, like many others, was the victim of this fraudulent scheme. The trusted persons of the influential person managed to escape at the right moment, avoiding capture, but the other members of the group were detained. In the absence of the main criminals, curious, I asked if she was looking for me because her faithful partner had run away. To my surprise, she denied it, claiming that she loved me. She insisted that we should sit down and discuss everything. Having reminded her of our divorce, I saw no point in entering into a conversation. But she believed that karma had already punished her, citing significant financial losses and a complete decline in respect. She complained about the ridicule of others mocking me. You emerged triumphant from this predicament, what else can you do? As for me, I only want peace. I dreamed that she would disappear from my existence, and at the same moment, I wished that she would disappear from my abode. That was my highest wish. Continuing, she said, now that you understand that there was no connection between me and D, we can make up. If there was one, he would have chosen me, wouldn't he? I replied, no, he wouldn't have chosen you because he had many companions like you. She wanted to gain financial knowledge by sleeping with him, hoping to learn some stupid money-making schemes. After all, he couldn't keep all his mistresses, could he? She begged me for reconciliation, insisting that her relationship with her partner was purely physical, devoid of any emotional attachment. She was led astray by the lure of instant wealth. But I made it clear that reconciliation is not an option. By that time, I had already made significant progress, and her persuasions were useless. Perhaps if she had begged me when her infidelity was exposed, I might have considered forgiveness, but to be honest, I'm not sure. Having seen her true nature, I am not naive enough to trust her again. When she faced personal losses, she came back to me. Even after leaving home, she continued to mock me, showing no remorse during our divorce proceedings. And now, as a result of an incredible turn of events, she returns to me having lost everything. I firmly told her to leave as I had plans to attend fitness classes. Curiously, she commented on my youthful appearance and asked if I was dating someone. I replied that it was none of her business. In response, she burst into tears, accusing me of rudeness. I told her that she should be grateful to me for being polite to her and listening to her. Considering what she did to me, she shouldn't have been allowed in my house, but I remained a polite person and invited her into the house. She squeezed my hands tightly, repeatedly uttering apologies. I told her that her tears and pleas no longer have any meaning for me. I used to cherish her very much, but now these feelings have faded. She left after I pulled away from her in response to her requests. A few days later, her mother contacted me and asked for a meeting. Curious, I asked about the purpose of our possible meeting. She said that she had an urgent and important issue that could not be adequately resolved over the phone. In return, I agreed to meet her the next day for a cup of coffee. After our meeting, she apologized on behalf of Anna. I hugged her and assured her that she was not to blame for anything. Her kindness towards me has never weakened, even during the difficult divorce process. Unlike Anna, she never spoke ill of me. Then she asked if there was a possibility of reconciliation with Anna, as she was very sorry for her actions. She explained that Anna was constantly overcome with tears and she plunged into a state of depression. She said that Anna could do something stupid in connection with the catastrophic loss of savings, part of a monthly salary, and some valuable jewelry, which I mentioned in previous publications. I didn't know that Anna had also lost her savings. This was surprising because she always diligently saved money, and I was sure that she had at least $100,000. The scale of such financial losses could negatively affect the mental state of any person. Wondering how she planned to overcome the despair caused by the loss of money, I asked how she was going to reconcile with me. In response, she stated that Anna's love for me is a source of comfort for her. I must admit that I sympathized with Anna for a fleeting moment. I even thought about reconciliation, but I quickly came back to my decision not to take her back. I honestly told her that I couldn't continue this relationship because I didn't love her anymore. It turned into a repetitive cycle of tears and pleading requests. In an attempt to protect her daughter from depression, I remained firm in my choice and urged her to turn to a therapist, since Anna needs help more than her husband. My ex-mother-in-law expressed her disappointment when I rejected her request, but eventually, she understood my point of view. However, there was another topic that would have greatly worried Anna. This is my investment path. I decided to follow reputable financial YouTubers who provide valuable information about personal finance and investing at both the macroeconomic and fundamental levels. This knowledge turned out to be useful for creating my investment portfolio, and to my delight, I have already made a significant profit. In addition, I have mastered the stock and bond markets. I still have a hard time understanding some concepts and am hesitant to enter unfamiliar territory, but I am not in a hurry. I study everything step by step without haste. Familiarity with the stock market also strengthened my belief that making money requires patience and courage. I strive to come out of this experience stronger than before. As for dating, I don't think I'm ready for it yet.